Hello, everyone. Welcome to Elite Weather. I'm Mr. G, your meteorologist. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. And this is the day that the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. So let the church say amen. So thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to share this weather forecast with everyone. Again, if you're watching me today, you're probably watching on TikTok or YouTube. And if you're on TikTok, you can follow the channel, and I appreciate comments. Leave your likes or dislikes. It doesn't matter as long as you interact with the video. And if you're on YouTube, there you'll have to subscribe if you wanted to know whenever I post a video. If you want to watch my future videos, or you can go back and watch my old videos. The channel is called Elite Weather Forecasting. So feel free to do that. And comments are always appreciated. Your feedback, I really would like for that feedback, as I am a student of meteorology and I'm at Mississippi State University. So I would like for you all to be able to critique me if necessary and let me know what you think of the video and the weather forecast. So as we do that, we're going to jump into our first map and talk about the weather forecast that we are going to see as we head into this upcoming work week, your Monday morning weather forecast. So if we don't talk about your area, it's because you don't have nothing to talk about in your area, because your weather is probably pretty quiet. So I typically only cover spots where there is inclement or interesting weather happening, something worth talking about. Now you can have a nice day, and it can be either a little bit cold or a little bit hot. And we'll talk about your area because it may be something that might be abnormal for the period. If it's excessively hot or excessively cold, we can cover those things. So as we jump into our first map, we're going to talk about a little bit of colder weather that's going to move into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And then as we look at our first map, we are seeing we have an area of low pressure that's going to be moving across the Great Lakes. And it's going to drag with it a cold front. And that cold front is going to bring a change in the temperatures and a change in the wind direction. If you are to the south of the front, it's going to be a little bit warmer. And you're going to notice those winds coming from the south. But as you get behind the front, you're going to notice a little bit cooler, a little bit more brisk. And those winds will come from the northwest. So behind the front, cooler temperatures and the northwest winds. We might see a few snowflakes up around northern Michigan and around maybe what's it called with the big giant waterfalls are Niagara. We might see a few snowflakes around Niagara Falls and maybe into Ontario, Canada. We might see a few snowflakes, but nothing big or measurable. But it will be a change in the temperature and a change in the wind. So if you're enjoying a little bit of warm weather, you're going to enjoy it over the Ohio Valley and the Northeast tomorrow. But however, when you get to Tuesday and into Wednesday, that front will slide through, and then you'll get those winds that's going to come around from the northwest and bring in colder air. And what that's really going to do is make things kind of suck in the morning. Temperatures will be right about freezing, so we're going to see some areas maybe dip a few degrees below 32. Some areas is going to hover right around that 32, so that's going to be reason enough for frost advisories or freeze warnings to take place, depending on how cold you will be in the overnight and in the early morning hours. So we're going to see colder weather over Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, parts of upstate New York, and western Pennsylvania. We're going to see it a little bit colder. And if you're in southern Canada, it's going to be a little bit cold for you folks as well. So get ready for that in the mornings. But the afternoons will recover a little bit. We're going to see highs hit the 40s over the northern regions, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the upper peninsula of Michigan, and Ontario, Canada. So Toronto, Montreal, we're going to see A little bit temperatures in the 40s for highs, but we will see those highs maybe reach out into the 60s down in the lower southern Minnesota and Iowa, southern Wisconsin, as well as through parts of Illinois, Indiana, and southern Michigan. We will see temperatures upper 40s and 50s. In some areas further south you go will be in the 60s. But if you're close to that front, you're going to see that biggest change in those temperatures. So here's a little bit more about the frosty conditions in the morning. So we're going to see you're going to have to cover sensitive plants. So if you have annuals that you have to plant every year, like pansies, you're going to have to cover those guys. If you got young tulips growing, just coming up out of the ground, cover those guys alongside the house or wherever you have them coming up at. So you might want to cover just to keep them warm, to keep them from being damaged by the morning chilly temperatures. The temperatures will recover a bit in the afternoon, but the mornings are going to be kind of dicey for young plants out in your front yard or whatever. And we're going to see the same thing as we head through Tuesday and especially into Wednesday as that front makes its way to the eastern seaboard, to the I-95. So once that front passes through Washington, New York City, and Boston, we're going to see those temperatures, that freeze start to occur. So a little bit less worry of the freeze in the big cities. Not as bad if you're in the city limits of New York, Boston, Washington, Philly, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Providence. If you're in a bigger city, the heat island effect will sort of mitigate how cold it gets. But this is really going to be an issue for folks in rural areas. If you are upstate New York, if you're in Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, if you're kind of out in western or central Pennsylvania, West Virginia, the Ohio Valley, Indiana, Illinois, if you're out over the farmland, Michigan as well, Wisconsin and Minnesota, Iowa. If you are not in a big city, you are going to be more at risk to suffer some of the drawbacks of a late season frost. So we really watch for late season frosts when we're in the early planting season. And some of the farms have already begun their spring planting. Farmers are out getting the fields ready to put the first crops in the ground. Corn, there's soy. Maybe if you have smaller farms that do fresh vegetables like zucchini, squash, pumpkins, this is when you plant those things. So some of those things take a little bit longer to grow. So if you have now seeds in the ground might be okay, but because the ground provides warmth for things that's under the soil. But once the plants start to shoot up and break the soil, then they can become subject to damage or loss by the cold morning temperatures. So do what you can to prevent that. That's what we watch out for. This is why talking about frost and freeze watches are important to track in our weather forecast, because those things can affect prices for these things later on in the season when it is warm. If they were damaged from the start, that can mitigate or minimize the amount of crop return when they harvest in the fall or late summer, because some of these items become ready in late spring and early summer, and some don't come in. Like corn, you don't see until September and October in a lot of places. In Minnesota, we really don't see our corn being ready till November. So cold start to the season can damage the crop, and it can create a loss in the return, and it can also affect the quality of the crop. So we also got to talk about a storm that's moving across the plains and the Rocky Mountains. Not only did that storm system bring snow to Colorado over Saturday and last Friday, we saw snow across Colorado and Denver. Hopefully it's going to be the last shot of snow across the Denver area. But that energy that's moving out of the west It's going to be sliding across the Central Plains and into the Midwest, and in doing so, it's going to pull up moisture off of the Gulf of Mexico. And that moisture and warmth that's coming up off of the Gulf is going to be moving across the Midwest, toward the upper Midwest, along the Mississippi River Valley. So from Louisiana through Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, all the way up to the lakes here, Lake Superior, into Minnesota, we're going to see that moisture coming up in warmer temperatures as we move through the weeks, and we're going to see the thunderstorms become prevalent in that air mass, as well as that piece of energy comes into the plains and into the Mississippi River Valley and into the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes, and eventually toward the Northeast. We're going to see severe thunderstorms, and we're going to start to see those thunderstorms begin to happen as early as coming into your Monday. So we're going to see thunderstorms here across parts of Indiana, not yet, but Iowa, Nebraska, Arkansas, and Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. My voice sounds a little shaky. I had a huge coffee from Starbucks, so I'm kind of jittery. I'm on a massive coffee and sugar high, so I apologize if my voice sounds a little shaky or drunk. I'm on a sugar rush, so I figure it's a good time to make my video while I got a lot of energy, but unfortunately it's a little bit too much energy, so I feel a little bit jittery. And it's hilarious because I can hear it when I talk. My voice sounds a little shaky. I almost feel like I sound like a grandma or something up here talking, but that's because I got a whole lot of freaking sugar pumping through my veins and coffee from Starbucks right now, because I stopped at Starbucks after church today. So, and I usually buy a Trenta cold foam. My favorite right now is the caramel. It's the cinnamon caramel. The cinnamon caramel cold foam. So that's what I got, and I usually double the foam, extra syrup, and I have them put heavy cream instead of milk. I'm telling you, it's excellent that way. It's a little bit thicker too, and I love it when it's a little bit thicker. But anyway, this is the area all over the Midwest into the Great Lakes and the Northeast that we're going to see thunderstorms this week. Some of those thunderstorms are going to create tornadoes. We're going to see some hail, some damaging winds. Rain is going to be pretty heavy in some locations, especially for the east you go. We're going to see more rainfall towards the east. So the Mississippi Valley, we're going to see the heavier rain, and that's going to lead to flash flooding. So a lot to look at this week pertaining to severe weather outlook for this week. So again, here's that severe weather outlook for this week. Well, we're going to have severe thunderstorms, and this was going to start from Monday into Tuesday. We're going to see severe thunderstorms across the plains and into the upper Midwest, from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. We're going to see some severe thunderstorms Monday and Tuesday, and that's going to lead to some hail, damaging winds, 60 to 65 miles per hour. Tornadoes are going to be possible, as well as heavy rain and flash flooding. Some areas is going to pick up 2, maybe 3 inches of rain in some of the heavier downpours there. And we're going to look at our first area of significant severe weather, and we're going to be seeing that, and that's going to be across for when we're going to see some action over the plains all the way into Thursday night. We're going to have a pretty big severe weather outbreak down here across parts of the plains here, across Kansas and into Nebraska, Oklahoma, down here, North Texas. We're going to see damaging winds between 60 and 65 miles per hour, 2-inch plus diameter hail, very heavy. Now, these thunderstorms across the plains tend to not be the heaviest rain producers. Typically, we see low precipitation supercells, and they're usually discrete supercells, so individual, separate supercells. So they typically be small in size but pack a serious punch, and they tend to be elevated, high altitude thunderstorms with they're very good storms for storm chasers to chase for the research, because the visual, you can see what's going on. It's nice that they are typically low precipitation, but they typically produce very large hail. These are the types of storms where you see the hail the size of baseballs and balls, softballs, golf balls. These are those types of storms. But they often don't produce heavy rain, a lot of rain, but you do see a lot of lightning. This is where you see the most vivid lightning. Excellent lightning for photography, ground to cloud, cloud to ground lightning. Or you can see the tornadoes, or typically skinny, long rope tornadoes or cone tornadoes. Sometimes you can see, on the biggest outbreaks, you will see wedge tornadoes. But wedge tornadoes are more likely to happen in the summer than in the early spring. This is when you will likely see stovepipe or rope tornadoes in the early spring, mid-spring, and that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to be seeing on Thursday. And then as we get into Friday and Friday night, we're going to see another significant outbreak of severe weather across the upper Midwest. So we're going to shift that a little bit out of the plains and into the Mississippi Valley. And that's going to be Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas. It's usually more green in these areas. When we typically see squall lines, we'll see mesoscale convective systems, more organized thunderstorms. You'll see the wedge tornadoes form in these storms, and the heavier rainfall. Now these can pack a lot of rain and hail. You typically see smaller hail in the thunderstorms across parts of the Midwest or the Mississippi River Valley, and that extends from Minnesota down to the Gulf Coast. You typically see thunderstorms produce heavy rain. This is where you get the rain-wrapped tornadoes, where it's harder to see the tornado because they are shrouded in heavy rain. So when we get to the eastern areas, we look for that, more low-based thunderstorms. So they're harder to see the tornado because the base of the storm is lower to the ground. So typically, sometimes the tornado is harder to see. So it makes this situation a bit more dangerous than they do across the high plains. And then that's your weather forecast for this week. As we start the week, at least from the beginning of the week, my name is Mr. G. Thank you for watching me today. Leave your likes, comments, subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys all tomorrow, maybe in the midday or so, with another video. So have a great day, a great evening, and a great start to your work week tomorrow, okay? Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.